Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 53 of the Lunch Bunch Show. Today, we're going to be talking about when do you know when it's time to go? When do you, at a point in your business, well, it happens personally as well, but we're going to be talking about business today. At what point in your business do you think you've hit a wall where you have to make that decision to change course or leave it completely? So that's our main topic today. And as usual, we'll talk about that for about 15 minutes, and then we'll go on to the lunchbox, and everybody brings their own contribution to the discussion. And then we leave you at the end with a doggy bag full of great tips that you can take back with you and check out. So let's start the show by introducing our panel and the folks at this lunch table. So we're going to start with Jess. Wave hi, Jess. And next to Jess, on my end anyway, is Randy. Hello, Randy. Good to see you. Scott, and Vivek, all the way. He's going to wave all the way from London. That has to be a big wave, Vivek. Great. So let's start the discussion. So as I said, the discussion is about when do you get to that point where you think things have got to change. And in the immortal words of Kenny Rogers, when is it time to hold them? When is it time to fold them? And that's a big, big issue. I mean, that's anybody who's an entrepreneur, anybody who, actually, even if you work for someone, there's a point where you say, listen, this is not working for me. And how do you know that? And I'm going to get a couple of quotes. First of all, a good friend in the community, as well as Kitty Walker from London, a neighbor of Vivek's. She says, basically, it's very important to understand when to walk away from things or when to stand and fight in life, business or personal. You get into trouble if you're not self-aware, and I think that's the kernel. I think that's the key. I think you have to know what it is you want and not start a business because you figure there's a market for that. If you don't have a personal, and it's cliche, I don't want to say it, but it's true. I mean, you don't have a personal passion, a motivation to do something, I don't think it's going to carry you very far. I think that's the fuel that you actually need. So I'm going to open this up because I don't want to be talking all the time, and I'm going to open up to the panel and see who wants to jump in. Maybe give their own experiences and what do they do when they reach that decision, that fork in the road. Who's going to go first?
That's a real gut check question, Ray, both personal and business-wise. I mean, or for any impact in your life, and it's something that I imagine a lot of people are struggling with. And at some point in time, they realize I should have left 10 years ago. And that's the tragedy sometimes. But I'll share a personal thing that I spent 26 years in corporate life. Had a phenomenal job, had a phenomenal career, loved it, but I got burnt out. Burnt out by the job, loved the people, loved the company, just got to the position where I wasn't going to go any further up, and I wanted something new in my life. So the stars lined up kind of right, and I was able to take a early retirement and walk away with stuff in hand. But that at my age when I did that, I was 50 years old. Most people say, man, you retired at 50? Well, I didn't. I retired, but I went on to do something else. And I made a change. It's been very rewarding to me. If I look back financially, I'd be in a lot better shape if I'd stayed. But I don't know that I'd be happy. And so it's that gut check thing. It took me about 3 years to come to that resolution. About 3 years, I recognized that I wanted to do something. It took me 3 years to find that thing I wanted to do. And I walked away. The day I walked out of that thing, the only thing that bothered me was the friendships that I felt like I was leaving, which I've been able to maintain, but I felt like I was leaving those coffee shop, water cooler conversations. So it was difficult to do. On the whole, it was easy to do inside and internal. And at the same time, making a shift like that impacted my marriage too. So, I mean, it was a monumental change.
Here's something too that I heard you say that resonated really well with me, Randy, and that's I knew it was time, and then I started looking for something different. And you didn't make a change until you found that. So that's something that I think is really worth stating again because you were like, okay, I'm winding this down. But because of who I am and how I do things, I'm not going to just leave and hope something comes my way. I'm going to be on the lookout. I'm going to actively cultivate a different aspect of my brain, bring different opportunities my way that I might be on the lookout for, and when the time is right and that has appeared, I will know. And I think that's also something that is very heartfelt, and that's something that I try and do is like, okay, well, I don't necessarily know the answer. Do I go? Do I stay? Do I let go? Do I hang on? And in the end, it's a why not wait and see? Because time is on our side in this. Time is on our side.
However,
oh, sorry, Randy, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
No, it's just because you're saying the time, and Randy had left when he was 50, which is very young, and you have a lot of options, I imagine.
Yeah, since I'm 45 now.
it's true, and and I'm much older than that, and I have to say, in 2008 and 2009, with the crash, there are a lot of people my age that suddenly found themselves out of work, and they all had that big decision. First of all, it's more difficult as you get older to find work, so a lot of them have decided to work for themselves, and a lot of them became social media consultants. I don't know what's happened to that. I hadn't seen any demographics if that's been shaken down or not. But I can understand their thinking, and I can understand why they did that. I have my question to you is that what were the flags? For them, they're thinking, oh, this is the hot new thing. I know how to use Facebook. I can help people use Facebook. It's only going to grow because it's so trendy. That but what were the flags in your situation that sort of said, this something's not right. I really have to think about this whether I should stay or not.
For me,
Ray?
Anybody?
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, I've made two fairly large changes in my career, and in both of those, I knew for a while and I didn't want to face it, and I waited too long. It was one of those things that Randy said. It was like, now granted, it wasn't 10 years later, but because of my age, it felt like 20 years too long. And I think that there's a big part of that it was at some point for me, the pain was so heavy that I was like, well, I'm just walking away. One of them was, it was like, I just can't do this anymore. It's anti everything who I am. It's anti what I stand for. I don't have, this stuff that I see as the opportunity is a completely different direction. Not that the other direction was bad or my direction was right or vice versa, but it was just not aligning. And that was my first, that's kind of how I look at everything is, are things aligning or are they not?
Let me pivot over to businesses because we kind of hinted at that, the 10-year, waiting 10 years or something. Businesses, and especially whether you're a solopreneur or small 15-employee business or something like that, your finances will tell you real quick when you, and that's what happens to a lot of businesses. I mean, they don't understand the cash flow need, and they hold on until they lose everything. Instead of pivoting and changing a course and understand maybe this social media marketing thing that I thought I was going to do, maybe I need to change and be focused on this one area, or I found out that my expertise is in doing this, and how do I migrate to that? They wait too long because of maybe ego, maybe pressure, fear of failure, or being labeled as a failure or something like that. And today, in today's times, heck, man, companies come and go and startups every day. So it's easy to start something. And back to your question about the economy downturn and the influx of people. Well, there is no barrier to entry into the social media marketing or consultant profession or whatever. There's plenty of those, and it was evident that a lot of those people were just saying, because everybody says, hey, I know how to market, and that's marketable.
Not true. Not everybody says I know how to market, and I think I'm a poster child for that. And the question on the table is, when do you know when the right time to move on is? And throughout my life, it's been either I've been fired or I've been laid off. And I most recently, it was being laid off because of the recession that Ray, you've been talking about. And I had been working in a marketing department and trying to learn social media. So I assumed, and you've all heard this story before, I assumed that I had to be a social media manager. And it took me almost a year to figure out that I had to do exactly what you said, Randy, and that is, instead of the broad, what can I do? So it's pivoting into just figuring out that, and the narrower the niche became, the more robust and the stronger my position in the market was. But it takes courage, and there are those of us, and I can look back on my entire career, and there've been a few times when I have left. It's either been I've stayed too long because I wasn't courageous enough to leave, or as in your case, there is a milestone. When I was 30 years old, I realized I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, so I gave 6 months notice and went back to college, got my degree, and went on from there. So some of us just have to have a kick in the butt in order to go on.
What
Good
about,
point.
yeah, I agree. And that made me think of three things that have been talked about some here. One is the skill. If we can do something, that's cool. But and hopefully our goal in bettering our society might be to have a skill we can teach other people so that we could put ourselves out of a job, right? I know a dentist who, she's like, my job is to get everybody's mouth healthy and I don't have a job anymore. I would be happy if I did that. Well, lifestyles and other things, that's a pretty big job. So that's a little bit different than how do I use Facebook, or how do I use a Hangout, or how do I set up my Twitter accounts and some things like that. And when we get into those types of things where it's an actual task, I think there's a limited market. And I think that we're following people that have blazed a trail. And when we do that, unless we're bringing brains, which is the second thing I wanted to say, unless we're bringing our own brains and our own experience from our own background and our own stories to a particular segment, to think outside the box and do it in a different way, we get lost because the barrier to entry to an online business is so low. There's so many people trying. And the third piece is, a lot of us, when we go back to the financial statements, what if we asked for a sale more often? Is it because we're all marketers and we can do things, but we forget to ask for a sale that we don't actually get any business, and then we find ourselves in this place that we have to make a decision. This isn't working for me. I'm not making the income I am. And so I think it's a different kind of heartfelt look in the mirror of, did we do what we said we were going to do in our business plan? Are we taking the steps to ask for the sales at the appropriate times? And if we're not getting the sales, where are our broken, so that we can try and remedy that to find out if it is it the right time, or do I just need to make an income?
Is it externally? Those questions that you're asking are excellent because they're all sound business practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take it one step further. I mean, even because in my own personal experience, for instance, I thought when I did my first business plan, I thought this should work. I had the experience. I had my specialties in theater and restaurants, that markets. I know marketing. I went back to marketing. I went to marketing school to learn what I didn't know. I took all the business courses I had to take. I managed companies for many years. I thought this should work. And of course, and then the whole being online is very seductive, right? Because you get a lot of validation online. You spend a lot of time, and the more validation, it becomes addictive. And you realize at some point that you're actually working at validating yourself. You're just I don't want to say just brushing your ego because that's a bit superficial, but you're not money. It becomes feedback. And at some point, when I knocked on the doors on the restaurants, primarily, I started to understand quite quickly that they don't get social media. They know social media is Facebook. They just want Facebook pages. They want Facebook likes. Google Plus to them is just, Google is about AdWords and maps. everything in their head, because it has to be that way because they're extremely busy and they're not marketers. So I realized at that point that I'm too small. I'm not Don Quixote. I can't topple that windmill. I have to rethink about what I want to do. And when I did, and I started to take this time and talk about myself so much, but there's a really important thing that I discovered through that journey, and that is all the things I've done in my life, no matter how they changed, there was always something in common. When I was a kid, I wanted to have that sort of Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers Supper Club. That was my dream. I wanted to have a big, that was it. And so I got into theater, and I lived that dream for a while. And then I got into restaurants, and that's not a big jump, right? I mean, you still have, the front of staff, and it's a family. You're very intense, the relationships inside the company. I found I floundered when I left that and went to more corporate kind of culture because you didn't have that intensity. You didn't have everybody pulling for the same thing. And that's what I have to find again. I got to find that center, that thing that's followed me through all my life, and that's an important ingredient when you decide how you want to spend the rest of your life. It's got to be in tune with that.
And you hit on a great thing, Ray, personally. But think back and look at all the great inventors, Edison, Ford, all these guys. Look at, and they will tell you, it was failure after failure after failure before they hit something. In their mind, it wasn't a failure, but they put it together and it didn't work, right? And then they hit something. So I mean, that's the drive. You got to keep looking till you do it. And if you feel yourself sitting in a chair at some corporation or sitting at the desk in your living room in your underwear right now, and you're itching to do something else, then it's upon you to make that decision.
That's right.
Okay. Anybody want to add a last thought to that before we move on to the lunchbox?
I do have a real quick last thought, and that is that there's also the tide of history. Sometimes things are going to rise and fall, and part of the goal is to figure out where that river is and to plant yourself right in the middle of it, so that when the tide comes in, or whatever metaphor you want to have, you just happen to be well positioned. So it's being just a smidge ahead of the tide of history, and that's what we all on the plus think, that we're, as early adopters, are positioning ourselves so that when the tide of history actually shifts over to Google Plus and online and whatnot, we'll be well positioned.
That's being inner and outer aware, right?
Exactly. It's not an exit strategy. It's an entrance.
Okay, so we're going on now to the lunchbox, and we're going to ask the bunchers to share what they have. And the first person to do that today will be Jess.
And I don't have a current event lunchbox piece today, unless you count the amount of traffic that was in Seattle this morning.
Well, it doesn't have to be a current event, but I...
Oh, okay. Well, then I do have something. Because I was listening to my podcast on the way here. On the way home, I was out running Carter to school this morning, found myself in some traffic, and so I'm listening to this podcast about how to run healthily. Okay? How many of you guys run? Yeah, me neither. Right? So why am I listening to this podcast when running is the thing that I hate more than anything in the world? Well, Dave, he's the guy who created this bulletproof coffee, and he's a biohacker that comes up with all these great things. His podcast, Bulletproof Radio, is really neat because he brings on cool people. Well, today there was this guy named Kelly, and Kelly, I apologize, I've forgotten your last name. I can get the exact link. I was listening to them. See, I even feel a part of the conversation. I like these guys so much. They were talking about the importance of movement and how sedentary our society is, and we know that. We see that in an epidemic all over the place. We see it in the types of foods that we eat, and realistically, one of the things that they were talking about was just being barefoot. So I thought there were a lot of cool things, but just being barefoot in the sense that if you walk around in bare feet, your muscles on your feet will correct your gait over time. Nobody inherently is flat-footed. And so you've got to, all of us with our arch supports and all this other stuff, we're making our feet weak, which makes our legs weak, which makes our hips weak, which makes our butt weak, which makes our back weak. And our shoulders and our neck and some other part of our body might try and overcompensate, and we come up with all of these things. So walk around barefoot more often would be what I'm bringing then for the lunchbox.
There's a show for you, Jess, the Barefoot Hangout.
Oh yeah, to show everybody comes, and I am barefoot in my house all the time.
Me
I put
too.
shoes on. I
Yogi,
totally put shoes on to go out into the world, but I try in my driveway, and when it's not cold here outside. But yeah, we try and be barefoot. So that's cool, Randy. You do that too.
Yeah, I come in the door. As soon as I come in the door, I kick my shoes off.
Shoes
Boots,
off.
whatever I
Well,
got
you
on.
have the spotlight, Randy. It's your turn.
Okay. Well, this is kind of hit the press the last several days, and it has to do with Copyblogger, which is one of the mega blogs out there, one of the early entries into there, and has a tremendous following. But they announced just recently that they were killing their Facebook page, which they did. Now, whether they just unpublished it or totally wiped it is neither here nor there. They're not on Facebook anymore, and the reason being was it had to do with they just didn't get any value out of the they didn't get any ROI on it, and it when I say it kind of got topical because as soon as it was published, all the Facebook social media marketers came out of this, woodwork saying they're crazy, they don't know what they're doing, it works. Well, I don't know. I mean, I read the article and I read I watched the video that was embedded in Copyblogger's post announcing it. It gave some pretty good statistics of why they don't, and I can tell you that I've seen some of that on pages that I've worked with, clients that I've worked with, and my personal page. So that's a big one, and it kind of stabs at somebody. There again, it goes back to kind of what we were talking about in the opening, knowing when to hold them and when to fold. Copyblogger had been around forever, and since the infancy of Facebook, doing pages and stuff like that. They didn't see it as a value to them, and they chose to dedicate that effort somewhere else on their own real estate. So we'll share that link if anybody's got some feedback to want to protest it or go along with it. It's pretty intuitive.
Yeah, it's like when they did the comment thing, when they decided to get rid of the comments. There was a huge hullabaloo about that, but I think you're right on there, Randy. I mean, they knew when to pull it. It didn't meet their needs,
Right.
and they just courageously just did that. And I think people sometimes hold on to things too long, and are reticent to make that.
I do believe that, and we said this earlier. This medium is changing every day. And we were saying that you got to be on Twitter, you got to be here, you got to be there, you got to be active, you got to be 24/7. And I think that some business models that doesn't work for them. It doesn't it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't work for them though. So and they're seeing they've fleshed that out and they're seeing that and pulling back some. So I mean who am I to question Brian Clark and his business model and what he's doing there? So
I think there's a good lesson there, Scotty. But you bring a lunchbox.
Sure enough, it's an oldie but goodie from David Amerlin about experts, peers, pals, and trust. It's about your website, and he talks about some of the fundamentals that in order for you to actually get conversions on your website, you have to build trust. It has to be real and credible and reputable, and we could go into that. But one of the interesting points that he made is that when someone's a potential customer of yours and they visit your website, they're actually a bona fide expert. It might be an expert for a nanosecond, but they've been visiting authoritative sites, they've been visiting your competition, so they know exactly at the moment what is most important to know about their purchase. And if they visit your website, he makes the point, you better be right up to date and perpetually up to date, because they're comparing you to all of the other websites that are out there, the rest of their research. And no matter how good you are and how well you've done all of the other things, if you don't measure up in terms of what they're looking for, then they'll say, okay, well, I'll just move on, and they'll go on to some other place. And I thought that was a pretty nifty insight from David.
I had a chance to skim when you sent the link, and it is very, very interesting. Thanks a lot. Vivek, what's up? Hello, Vivek. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. This is a security find. Google has found a critical vulnerability in SSL3, and it is called Poodle. Randy might like the picture, but
Okay, great. We're going to show dog porn on Tuesday morning at noon.
It's called Poodle because it's called padding Oracle on downgraded legacy encryption.
Okay, Vivek, can I ask you to translate that for us non-geekish? How does it impact on us who have websites and blogs?
If your website provider has not updated their SSL properly, then you are in trouble.
And how do we just contact them and ask them, or?
Yeah, and this is not in the same scale as the earlier one, the Heartbleed one, but this is quite. It can be really severe.
Okay. So your advice then is to contact.
Google has found it, and they are actually plugging the Chrome browser to take care of that. And Firefox is also taking care of that, but Internet Explorer is the last one to take care of that. That's what this article says. Anyway.
Thanks, and you'll share that link then.
Yeah.
Super. Thanks very much. So that was great. We're going to now. We're almost at the end of the show, and this we're going to go into our doggy bags because everybody bought a treat even before Halloween, and we're going to share that with you. And the first person to share that will be Scotty.
Okay. Well, I am into video, and part of video is audio, and my doggy bag is soundbible.com for free sound effects. So I thought I would try a sound effect here and see what happens. And I don't know if we hear it.
Happy Halloween.
There we go.
Now, while you still can.
That just sent a chill up my back.
Before Master finds you.
Okay, it goes there, but in any event,
cool.
Check it
That's
out.
fun.
Happy
So
Halloween.
it's not Sound Bible, and these are all free, like
And they're all free. So if you're doing something for Halloween, this is a little bit of lead time for you.
Okay. Can you put them in YouTube's and videos and stuff, or are they copywritten?
Yeah. It's available for commercial or personal use.
Cool. Great. That'd be fun for our next show next week.
Okay.
So Randy, you're next.
Well, taking from my lunchbox my crumbs today going in the doggy bag are how to target your social media ads effectively. It's a well-rounded article that one of our co-authors on the SteamFeed blog platform wrote today, Mandy Edwards. I can't recommend it enough. I mean, she goes through it in a simple and unique way, hitting each platform. The takeaway goes back to, I guess the overall theme of today. You got to know you got to know when to fold them. So in advertising, you got to know your audience and where they are, and how you operate on those various platforms. And Mandy lays out a excellent guide to get you on your way.
Excellent. That's super. All right, Vivek, what's your doggy bag tip? Unmute yourself. Vivek, you're muted.
Oh.
Like I still have him. Oh,
that's that wire going under the Atlantic Ocean over to.
Yes,
Cool.
Are you back with us, Vivek?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually a utility which you can use to keep your contacts properly updated automatically. This is called as Ever Contact. When you subscribe to their package, what it does is it looks at the sign off at every email that you receive, and it automatically updates the contacts. If someone sends you an email and it's a new one, it gets added. If someone has updated, which is when this becomes really important.
Does it work with them with mobile? Does it sync your mobile apps?
Mobile apps.
Well, like for instance, if you have this as an app on a mobile, so when you make a change in a contact on your desktop or something, does it sync to all your? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Vivek. We're going to have to run a little bit because we're a little bit late, but I want to pass the torch over to Jess and see what she has in her lunch bag.
I brought a book, and the link I know you have, Ray. A Dream with a Deadline. This goes back to our topic today. How do you take an idea? How do you put a strategy around it? And then how do you put your strategy into action to be able to see if it's going to work and correct in a more real-time fashion? And one of my favorite things, how to say no so you have more time for what you want to be doing to grow your business.
Oh, interesting. I got the link actually. Well, either you can share it or I can put it on the event.
Okay. Either one.
Yeah. And I'll leave you with my Doggy Bag tip, and that is it's an app that I use a lot. Recently, I think Mark Treppingen did a post on Google Plus about it as well. I don't know if he just discovered it or not, but I've been using it. I think when I started with Firefox, so that's a while ago. So it's for Firefox as well as Chrome. And I'll tell you, it really does save your life. It's a restore forms. Basically, what it is an extension. And whether you're filling in a field, for instance, what I find it most useful is sometimes when you're on a website and you want to share something, say Google+, it'll open a little window and you start writing your post and then something happens. You click the button and it's gone, right? And then you click the button again and the window's gone. You've lost all the stuff. But if you have this little icon in the corner of the window, you hit it and it gives you all the last things you've written. So you can just plug it right back in. It is a lifesaver. And it works really good for notifications too when you respond to a notification and all of a sudden you click on the notification and it's gone. So Lazarus, check it out. So thank you everybody. Excellent show. That first topic, when to hold them, when to fold them, is huge. But I have to say, I think everybody take some time and look at why you're doing what you're doing. And if you're happy, you only got one life to live. So live it happy. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next week, which is the show before Halloween. So who knows what spooky things are going to happen. Take care, and you'll see you next week. Bye-bye.